Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the creative conversation. What is parental engagement? What is family learning for Perth and Kinross Local Authority? I hope you get a lot out of this session, and of course it supports your practice moving forward. I'm really pleased that we're able to include practice from the field, and I'd like to thank Rona, who's just come in, for joining us this afternoon to share the amazing work that she and her team have been doing with families in relation to family learning and parental engagement. So thank you to Rona for getting in and coming along today. If you just go to the protocols. So next slide. Okay, so first I have to go over the practical side of delivering an online session. So apologies if you've heard this before, but in case you haven't, we would ask that you please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. You'll also have an opportunity to speak if you want to ask questions at the end. You can also use the chat panel to ask questions, post comments, resources, or anything that you would like to share. If you do want to talk or ask a question, please put the word speak or raise your hand, and one of the facilitators, myself, Julie, or Beverly, will bring you into the conversation. This event will be recorded, just so you know if you're thinking about putting your camera on. If you lose connection, please refer to the email that you received, as it will have the name of the person to call to get help. And lastly, we try to make these events as relaxed as possible. We encourage dialogue between peers, but it is online, so if we do have a few glitches, please forgive us. So Beverly and I are going to start the session just to give you a national overview. We'll look at some key documents, legislation, and end on terminology, what family learning and parental engagement is. So if we go to the next slide, Beverly will start the national picture for us.
Yes, I'm just waiting on the slides catching up, but what we wanted to do was trying to point out some of the key pieces of legislation that are relative to this area of work. And the first one I would like to point your attention to is the Parental Involvement Act, which came into force in 2006. Within that act, there are three particular strands. One is learning at home, the homeschool partnership, and the parental representation. So you can track all of our work back to this piece of legislation. The other pieces of legislation and policy frameworks on that page have come out since then. Another one that I would point your attention to is the review of the impact of the Parental Involvement Act. So this was published by the National Parent Forum of Scotland in 2017, and they had approached the Scottish Government asking for funding to do a review of the Act, and their findings was published in this key document. And I will come on to one of those key findings in the next page, which was the Learning at Home review, but I'll hand over to Susan to talk about some of the other areas.
So there's just two in particular that I wanted to draw your attention to, which for family learning. So the Adult Learning Statement of Ambition is an important document for those not familiar with adult learning and the impact that that can have. The document is going through a refresh at the moment, but I'm hopeful that they will continue to include family learning or literacies as it's defined within the document, because the adult within family learning is also of equal importance. However, there are skills involved in working with adults and children together, and this document can provide some insight into how you support adults in particular. The next document, the Higgies, as I'm sure you're all aware, was refreshed in 2016. At that time, we conducted a series of consultation exercises with the field, and one of the requests was for an additional QI for family learning. So you'll find this QI in both the How Good Is Our Schools For and Early Learning and Childcare. These documents were developed so that you can work across them all. They have a common language, so they can be used by partners from all sectors, which is great for family learning because the workforce is so diverse and includes partners from schools, CLD, colleges and third sector. It's also important to note that this is a choice QI. If we go to the next slide.
The document I would bring your attention to on this slide is the Learning Together National Action Plan. It was published in 2018 in August and it runs up to December this year. We are currently in the procedures of developing the next phase of the plan, but if you haven't seen this particular document, what it does is it pulls together actions within a range of the policies and strategies and it puts them together in one place. So you'll be able to go in there and see from a school perspective or a local authority perspective what the actions and requirements are of you, and you'll be able to access that from one place. The other documents which are listed below, again just pulling them to your attention, the pupil equity funding. Parents have a right and a duty to be involved in the decision making over the funding and how that is spent within their child's school. So again, just encourage you to have a look at that. And if you're not aware, there is the National Improvement Framework Parent Communication Plan. And again, that sets out some stipulations about the way that communications to parents are to be published, using non-jargon, using plain English, and it's a really simple document and it will help to guide you in your communications with parents and families. Next slide, please, Julie. So there's two documents here that I would draw your attention to. The review of learning at home, I mentioned that a couple of slides ago, and when we received the findings from the National Parent Forum of Scotland, one of those findings said there was a lack of clarity around learning at home about what it was and what it looked like in practice. And so that set us on a journey to produce a review and to look at a definition. One of the things that we found was there wasn't a definition in practice or in research. And so we worked with a range of practitioners from across Scotland and with some of our national parenting organisations to develop a definition. So you will find that in this document, which is on the National Improvement Hub. The other document I would draw your attention to is the Engaging Parents and Families Toolkit. Again, it's on the National Improvement Hub. There are 11 different sections in it, and it's just one of those key documents where you'll find the definitions that Susan and myself refer to today. You'll find information about how to involve all parents. There's community connections, there's information about learning at home, family learning, a whole range of topics there that you can take out as a section and do some CPD with your staff or with your families and that. So I would really encourage you to have a look at that. I'll hand over to Susan.
As Beverly said, within that document there is a section on family learning, and you'll get more information in the two documents I'm just about to point out to you just now. So you just go into the Engaging Parents and Families Toolkit and you can click on it. It will take you into the other documents on the hub. The review is the first one. That was conducted in 2016 at the same time as the Higgius refresh. And it took stock of where we were with family learning at that time. So what did the policy and strategy look like, research, and of course practice. One of the key features was the recommendations for government, Education Scotland, local authorities and the research community. What practitioners wanted was a recommendation around a framework. So we created a framework. The framework is the other document, and that really is a how-to guide. It tells you what you should be taking into consideration when you are planning to deliver and evaluate family learning programmes. This was recently refreshed at the start of the year, so it has some new case studies in it. If you go to the next slide.
So this slide is the definition that we've been referring to. It's one of the definitions we've been referring to in the toolkit. So it's the one for parental involvement, and it's taken from the Act and the guidance around the Act. And it's really just to highlight to you that there is a difference between parental involvement and parental engagement, but you will hear those two terms used interchangeably, and it's really important that you do understand the difference between the two. So parental involvement is about supporting pupils in their learning. It's about parents and teachers working together in partnership to help children become more confident learners. We do have a couple of slides later on, just coming up here, that will help you to understand what it is and what it isn't, but on the left-hand side of that slide you'll also see the sketch note, which is a visual form of, or a visual representation of what we mean by parental involvement. So if you can go on to the next slide, Julie. So we have looked at research, and we can see from that parental involvement isn't a clearly or consistently defined term in research. It represents many different parental behaviours or parental practices. It can represent parental communication with their child and their staff. It can be about parental participation in school activities. I won't go through them all, but because of the complexity and the fact that it's multifaceted in nature, it covers a wide range of parental behaviours, patterns and practices. So it is a complex area. If you go on to the next slide. You'll see from this slide just some examples of what it can be. It focuses on parents getting involved in the life and the work of the school or the establishment, and that could look like the visions, the aims and the rationale of the setting or the school, maybe reviewing that or developing it. It could be school improvement planning. It could be about the school fairs or discos, maybe some short life working groups, the Parent Council, of course, Parent Teacher Association, and also representing the parent voice at a local authority and indeed national levels. So that's just a few of the things that parental involvement can be. So if we go on to the next slide, we'll start to look at parental engagement. At the time when the Act came out, it was only the term parental involvement that was used within the document, but as time has gone on, the term parental engagement has come into our language, and I would say if you look at the Act you would see that it is there, although it's not referred to in those same terms. But we have turned to research to get an actual definition, and for that it's Janet Goodall and Montgomery's work in 2014, where it says that parental engagement represents a greater commitment, ownership of action than parental involvement, but it is really looking at children's learning. So if we go on to the next slide. Parental engagement is active and meaningful involvement in children's learning, and that's across a variety of settings from early years through, and it can also be in the community, it can be through family learning and through learning at home. But it is very much supported by the discussions between parents and practitioners, and it definitely focuses on how families can build on what they already do to help their child's learning, and as well provide that supportive home learning environment for them. Go on to the next slide. But there is a relationship between parental involvement and parental engagement, and Goodall and Montgomery refer to that as a progressive continuum between the two, and that movement representing a shift in emphasis away from the relationship between parents and schools to focus on the relationship between parents and their children's learning. So I think that's a really easy way to think about it. If you think about parental involvement being about the school and the parent, and parental engagement about the relationship between the parent and their children's learning. Go on to the next slide, Julie. So this next slide is looking at learning at home, and we referred to that earlier in the review of learning at home and there not being a definition. The slide shows you the definition that was agreed by the national parenting organisations, And as I said, you'll get it in the toolkit and you'll get it in the review. Go on to the next slide, please. So this slide looks at how can learning at home happen. Well, it can happen through a range of events, including play, leisure, volunteering, sports, cultural experiences, but it can also happen through the curriculum-related activities, homework, and talking with family members, asking what you learned today. So there's a whole range of things. This list is not exhaustive by any means. We'll go on to the next slide, please. So we've given you a whole pile of information there to take in, and I hope you'll have the chance later to look at the slides and maybe digest that. But what we wanted to do was to stop and give you an opportunity to think about what the successes of parental engagement have been during COVID-19, and then we'll look at the challenges of what parental engagement has been during COVID-19. So, Susan, do you want to put the Jamboard up?
Yep, the Jamboard is up. So I think we won't need a lot of time, I think. And if you click on it, you will become an animal of varying sorts. And you can start using the sticky note on the left-hand side. There we go, I've got people coming in. Julie, do you want me to try and present that, Julie, or?
I'll give it a little go, Susan. I'll just be one second for you.
See how you get going.
Okay.
So the first one is, what have been the successes of parental engagement during COVID? And this is completely anonymous.
Can you see that, Susan?
Yep. So this is Beverly, I'll let you talk about this, but I think this is a kind of common theme that we're seeing in a lot of the local authorities and RICs around the increased communication with families.
Yes, very much so. So it's good to see that is a success across Scotland and in various settings. So yeah. Yep. And again, the parents been able to engage from the safety of their home, very much so. Parents who haven't had the confidence maybe to come in to a school building or a early learning childcare setting have engaged more freely from home, and it will be interesting to see how that changes moving forward.
And I think the improved relationships as well is so important, given what everyone's been through. Okay, so there's quite a few to be going on with there. So if we move on to the second one about challenges. The Jamboard will remain open for a few hours after the session, so please feel free to add anything.
Okay, so we'll have a wee look at the challenges of engaging.
Yeah. Internet, yeah.
That's a new one, challenge of having difficult conversations online rather than face-to-face.
Digital literacy as well. Oops, that was me. I didn't mean to do that.
Yes, online doesn't suit all parents. That is very true.
There we go. Yeah, yes, even I have IT issues. I don't even know how to undo that.
I think there might be an undo button at the top left, Susan, like a
That's it.
go back, if you know what I mean.
There we go. Jeez Louise.
Another one, parents working from home find it difficult to juggle between work and learning at home. Yes, that's been a real common theme across Scotland. I'm only seeing a couple, apart from the big one, I can only see a couple.
I'm at a loss as to there's no more undoing, it's saying. So we'll sort it, yes. Sorry about that. That was absolutely my fault.
Do you want to go back to the presentation again?
Mhm. Well, that is the first time that's ever happened, so
Does everyone have the presentation back on their screen?
Mhm.
Perfect.
Okay, go to the next slide, please, Julie.
Okay. So we're moving into the family learning part of the session. This slide specifically looks at family learning and the key characteristics that are embedded within it. We have the illustration from the National Thematic Inspection, as Beverly highlighted before, and we also have the Scottish definition. We would encourage you to use this definition if you are developing your own strategy or any documents related to family learning. It was developed in partnership with practitioners, partners, stakeholder groups and ratified by the National Family Learning Network. For context, the National Thematic Inspection was carried out before the closures of school in March last year, but many of the activities and programmes evidenced will still be helpful in your family learning and parental engagement journey. Family learning, parental engagement, parental involvement and learning at home are recognised within the report as an important driver in ensuring that schools and partners can improve outcomes for children, young people and families. So we would encourage you to have a look at the document. The main illustration within the document has family learning at the heart, but each area is of equal importance and you can see the synergies and links between them. So how family learning can support increased parental engagement and involvement with the schools, vice versa, and how it can enhance and support learning at home. Next slide, please, Julie. So in this slide, we not only have the illustrations which mirror the key characteristics set out in the family learning framework, but also the 8 values that underpin the National Occupational Standards for Family Learning. I thought it would be helpful for you to see how these all fit together when you get the presentation. Family learning at its core is an effective tool to engage parents, children and young people in a learning outcome. There is equal importance placed on the child and the adult's learning journey. It should be needs-led, negotiated, flexible, inclusive, and builds on the skills, knowledge and experience that families already have. It should be contextualised, celebrate successes, and of course be fun. Because if we get it right, the impact can be huge. If you go to the next slide. In this slide, we have expanded the family learning wheel that we developed for the review and the framework to include parental engagement, involvement and learning at home. Some of you may recognise this from the Perth and Kinross Family Learning Report that predated these two documents and was the prototype for the wheel as you see it now. We believe this fully represents all of the key areas within the Learning at Home document and shows the breadth of where family learning can be found. I've also peppered some research around it because without the extensive research in family learning which evidences its impact, it wouldn't be seen as a driver for change nationally and locally. Research tells us that it can increase parental involvement and engagement. It can also improve school attendance, reduce absenteeism, supports people living in isolation, increase pupils' attainment and aspirations, and for parents we see progression into further education opportunities, increased employability, and for some the first qualification they have. And that's just a few areas of impact that you can see from the research here. We're now going to go on to Rona's input to hear a wee bit more about family learning in practice. So can I ask Rona to, are you able to present, Rona?
Yeah, I should be able to. Fingers crossed. You might need to give me permission to present.
Hold on, I'll get that done.
That's it now, Rona.
Yep, that's it. Somebody can just let me know that you're seeing that.
Yes.
That's fab. Okay, so yeah, it's nice to be asked to come and just do a little bit of an input about what family learning we've been delivering across Perth and Kinross. So our team's normally based at Balhousie Primary School and delivers across Perth and Kinross, but since this was over the last year or year and a bit, we have been working from home, but still delivering and supporting parents virtually. So our normal offer, we offer a range of programmes sort of from zero, so starting with our infant massage, which families can come along to from their baby's been 6 weeks old, right up to strengthening families, which is sort of for your sort of early secondary school children or families with that age group, and a lot of different things in between. So for some of them they're more around a parenting programme, and other things are more around sort of that family learning experience which you've heard about today. What we try to do in terms of our virtual offer, because they were all things that we delivered face-to-face, so we took a bit of an approach to setting up our groups virtually. So the first one we started with was our Incredible Years programme, and we started that in August last year. Trialled it. We kept our groups relatively small so that we could make sure that we could see and engage with all the participants on the screen, and we sort of learnt a lot from that. We developed a lot of the handouts that's normally given at sessions to using the sort of sway system, so that's a link that the parent can get. They don't need to download an app or anything, it is just a link that they can then go through the handouts from each session. We know not every parent necessarily has access or confident access in sway or link, so we can also send it out so they get paper copies as well as if they'd normally turned up to a group. The next group that we started delivering online was our Peep Learning Together. Now that is a programme where the parents and the children come together, and that's for preschool children, so quite young children. And to be honest, we weren't sure how that was going to go because we weren't sure how the children would engage online with the programme. So we trialled that for a couple of weeks with parents or families that were already accessing our support on a face-to-face basis before lockdown happened. I suppose to get some sort of really honest feedback from the families that we had good relationships with previous to lockdown. So the feedback was really good. We made a few tweaks in terms of the length of the session and how the session was delivered. But what we also done is we sent packs home to the families that were taking part with all the stuff that they needed to take part in the session. So we weren't expecting families to have, you know, glue or buttons or stickers or whatever the activity was that week. It was posted out to them, and they had that as the sort of resource bag if you want to bring out when the session was being delivered. We've also been developing some bite-sized sessions, so that's sessions that are generally about an hour long or maybe just under, just over, around specific topics. So we delivered one just last week around praise, encouragement and rewards that links to Incredible Years, but it's just a bite-sized information session for parents. And what we've done is we've been gathering quite a lot of information about what types of topics families would be looking for that we could do as a sort of 1 hour session for them. We've delivered Incredible Years, so we delivered Incredible Years obviously from August up to Christmas, and then we're on our second round of groups, which started January to the summer they will run. And again, we've got a mix of Incredible Years Basic, but also the school age programme as well, and that was because we were getting a lot more referrals for that older age group of children. We're piloting the Eat Well, Play Well programme, which is around healthy eating and physical activity. And our Strengthening Families programme, we just started delivering that January this year. Our first one, we learnt quite a lot because that's one that the young people would attend with their parents, and we actually struggled really to engage the young people in attending that. So we've learnt a lot from that, and we're piloting a slightly different model currently with families. So a little bit about the outcomes, because, you know, back in August when we said, you know, we have to do something, so let's try virtually. We weren't sure how it was going to go, to be perfectly honest, or what impact we were going to get, and was it going to be similar to what we would normally see in a face-to-face group. And although the slide sort of says since April, we didn't really start delivering till August. We have delivered 77 programmes with 241 families attending those programmes. A question that we always ask at all of our groups is about the impact, so how, from coming along to the group, how their understanding of supporting the children's development has changed. And again, for that question, it was a very similar response to what we saw last year. So 81%, there was a lot of an increase, a little increase 17%, and no change was 2%. The ones that showed a little bit of a change to our normal face-to-face delivery, but probably is no surprise, is when we ask parents about their confidence as parents, and has that increased as a result of coming along. Again, we're still seeing positive changes, but it is lower than what we would normally see at a face-to-face group. And very similarly with the levels of stress or anxiety, has that reduced as a result of coming along? Probably no surprise that, you know, there's a little bit of a change, but not nearly the same change as what we would see. And I think that just reflects probably the last year that we've had for families, you know, trying to balance everything that we've thrown at them. What I also have is some nice wee quotes from parents just about, you know, for some families, they were really struggling over the last year, and really around that sort of isolation and not perhaps being able to access the support that they can normally access. And actually, for some of them, having that virtual access is actually made our service more accessible. So we had a dad, for example, who the family were attending Incredible Year. He works offshore, but actually could still attend the evening sessions from the rigs via, obviously, the Teams link that we sent to him. So for him, he could still very much take part in the programme that his wife was also attending. But also for some parents, they actually felt safer attending from, if you want, the safety of their own home. Some of them have said, you know, if this was a face-to-face group, I know I would have struggled to set foot over the door on week one. But actually, they've not only come every week virtually, they've actually inputted into the sessions and the discussion as well, which is really positive. And, you know, just that, you know, dad's now reading to their baby, which, you know, or the child, which they didn't do before the session. So all of that's really sort of embedded in that sort of home learning, but the difference that the parents make to their children's development is as well. So our future plans, well, we're not really sure of timescales because we don't really know when things are going to go back to face-to-face, but there's quite a lot of exciting sort of changes and developments around family learning within Perth and Kinross as well. So we are developing parenting support and family learning for families with older children. So we know that that's been a gap in the past. So we are looking to see how we fill that gap. And actually we've got some fixed term posts within our team that will help us do that. We've also, just in the last probably 3 or 4 months, seen an increase in the amount of referrals we're getting in for Incredible Years for a younger age, so that 1 to 3-year-old age range. So we are going to be piloting the Incredible Years for toddlers in August as part of our offer, which again is just reflecting the needs that we're seeing from families. We've got some new posts which are going to support family learning within the 11 ELC communities. So we've got 20 full-time equivalent posts that will be allocated across Perth and Kinross, and that will really be to support that family learning in the ELC communities, because we know a lot of the nurseries are struggling to be able to deliver that because their staff are on the floor supporting the children. What I've already said, we're developing some more bite-sized sessions, and we had questions out within the ELC survey that closed just last week. So we're just getting that data back about what is it that families are looking for. When things do open up again for us, we won't go back to just a blanket only face-to-face delivery offer. We will have a blended model because we know the virtual sessions have worked better for some parents, but we know for some other parents they maybe can't access it virtually, whether that be confidence to use the device, having the device, or actually, for some people face-to-face is just a better way to deliver. So we will have a very much of a blended offer. And something that we've taken on within the team is we've got a few devices that we can loan out to families if they are attending things virtually and perhaps don't have access to those within the home. So I've just, from my last slide, just put up some of our contact details. Obviously, we're not in the office, but our emails and our phone will come through to us working from home. I don't know if anybody's got any questions you want to ask just now, or if you want to do that at the end, Susan.
That's fine. We can actually ask them just now. I think there's a couple of questions that are coming in, Rona. I love the fact that you're going forward with a blended approach, because I think it really reduces some of the barriers to participation that some of these actually we had in some instances no idea there were a barrier to participation until now. So it's been a really interesting time. So Fiona, I wonder if you wanted to come in with your comments in the chat panel.
Hello, thank you. Nice to see you, Rona.
You too.
Just wondering, a couple of things I put in the conversation bit there. Those bite-sized clips, they sound great. Is there any way that schools can access those and send them out to parents, or does a referral have to go into you guys first?
So the bite-sized sessions aren't clips, Fiona. They're actually sessions that's delivered virtually by staff.
Okay.
But then what the parents...
recorded clips, sorry.
Yeah. No, so what the parents do get is then they do get the handouts that go along with the session as well.
Okay, I just thought wrongly that they had been pre-recorded and then the parents could engage with it and, as and when.
Yeah, at the moment they're live, but it's not to say we wouldn't look at doing some pre-recorded sort of sessions in the future for parents.
Because I was thinking pre-recorded ones would also potentially address the barrier of language, where you could provide translated versions of it, if it's subtitles at the bottom, etc. Because it really, accessibility, this is a massive issue for myself at Balhousie. I know the services are fantastic for folk who are able to engage in English, but for an increasing number of families, Bulgarian, Romanian, Slovak, etc., we've got a barrier there because we can't, do the face-to-face because there's a language barrier immediately.
We do have a few other workers that are actually on our supplier. We sometimes work in partnership with from other services that do speak a number of different languages. So if we do know there's a grouping, if you want, of parents that would, need it delivered in Polish or Bulgarian, it's not to say it's not something that we could do.
I will be phoning you tomorrow, Rona, to discuss and request. Thank you.
I'll pop in.
That's great. Brilliant. Jenny, I wonder if you wanted to come in and ask your question?
Yeah, hi. I'm just wondering if any of your offers target mid to upper primary. I'm not sure when Strengthening Families starts, what age group. we're finding quite a few families struggling from sort of P5 up with, I suppose it's the relationship between the parent and the child and setting boundaries, and we're asked for a lot of advice in that age group. I'm just wondering what offers you've got for that.
So the Incredible Years school age covers that age group, and sort of Strengthened Families generally starts about 10-year-old, so there's a wee bit of an overlap. And I suppose we'd probably look at the families individually to see how much support they needed in terms of identify what programme is the best fit for them. But we've also got there's still the free access to the Solihull online, understanding your children's behaviour, and there's different age categories within that, and we've had quite a few families that have went online and completed that themselves. And some of the other ones that we have is the Triple P online support, but the families that you're talking might just be slightly too old for that. But again, happy to have a separate conversation to see what we can offer.
That sounds great, thank you.
I wonder if, before we go on to the Jamboard again, I wonder if anyone else has any questions specifically for Rona and the offer from her team. You have Rona's contact details, so please make use of it. And I think what we'll do is we'll go for the rest of the session, we'll go back to the Jamboard and we'll look at the family learning questions. So Julie, are you able to present?
Yes, Susan, I'll just do that just now.
Rona, I was just thinking when Jenny was talking about the Parents as Partners Award that Youth Scotland do for the High Five and Dynamic Youth Awards, yeah. They actually don't have an age limit now, so the parents themselves can get qualifications as well. Yeah.
And we do also, again, we've not offered it over the last year, but we do the Peak Progression Pathway, which again is a qualification for parents. Yeah. And we've got an agreement with Perth College that once they get a certain amount of credits, they can get guaranteed interviews for certain courses at Perth College. So again, a good so adult learning, or learning for the parents as well, and linking that to their children's learning.
Absolutely. Okay, so it's over. So thank you very much, Rona, as always. A really great input. But we're going to pass over to you guys again. So the questions that we've got are specifically around family learning. I'm really looking at what have been the successes of using a family learning approach during COVID, and then again looking at the challenges. So I'll go on mute again, and we'll give you a couple of minutes to use the sticky notes. I don't know if it's just my screen, but I can't actually see anything. You may not be delivering family. Oh, there we go. Thank goodness. Yeah, I think that we've seen that in other local authorities across the country, where there have been fewer family learning programs running, mainly because the the learning would happen within a class or a community centre. However, what we have seen in other local authorities is they have kind of seamlessly, in some instances, moved online. And we're trying to capture those case studies to highlight differences in approaches to lockdown. So if anyone has any programmes within Perth and Kinross, we are more than happy to link in with you to capture that for the National Improvement Hub. Outdoor learning seemed to be quite popular and had a really great impact on the families, particularly for those that were facing difficulties because they were stuck in the house. So it became quite popular. And cooking as well became very popular over lockdown for families.
Just wondering if anybody wanted to say anything about the stronger parent-practitioner relationships and maybe what, if there was anything in particular that led to that. Any one key element?
It's good that the feedback was positive.
Yeah. Great.
Okay. If everyone's finished here again, we're going to leave this open so you can certainly add anything in the next few hours. But if we move on to the challenges, I'll give you a couple of minutes. Yeah, I think what going online has given us certain opportunities, but it's also given us some barriers as well. In Perth and Kinross, I wonder what the coverage is like for broadband. Is it quite mixed, or is everyone on 5G?
No, so I'm part of a digital participation group, and that's actually one thing that we're looking at. And probably some of the bigger areas, it's relatively reliable and got a good speed, but that's not the case obviously in some of the smaller rural areas that can be quite patchy, and then for some actually almost non-existent still. So there's a real mix within Perth and Kinross.
Mm-hmm. Was there any strategies put in place to mitigate those rural areas not accessing the internet or having problems? I suppose that would be a network thing, wouldn't it though? I wonder.
It is a bit, I can only speak for this stuff. I was linked to some of the devices that went out through Connecting Scotland, and what we were looking at is most of those came through from memory on an O2 or an eSIM card. So if that didn't have good coverage in a certain area, we were looking at other alternatives that perhaps did, and trying to look at it that way. But yeah, there's no, it's a hard thing to fix because actually really what they need is proper broadband, I suppose. Yeah. It's not a quick fix.
No. But I think it's highlighted a need. Someone said something really interesting yesterday, It was about the Highlands and Islands. I think maybe it was Argyll and Bute. And she said, you know, there's nomadic tribes within the Sahara that have 5G. Why don't we? And I thought, well, probably that's right. But it's now been highlighted as an issue, so hopefully it's being taken note of. Yeah, there was an awful lot that was being asked. Okay, so we've got 5 minutes left, and I wanted to protect some time just for any additional questions that anyone might have, not just for Rona, but myself and Beverly, and our colleague Gillian that had set this up as well is here. Both Beverly and I will share our contact details as well as Rona's. So we are here at any time for people to ask us any questions or, you know, we're for any support at all. So if anyone has any questions, if you could ask them now.
Some tired people, I think.
I know.
Yeah,
I was saying earlier, I feel as if this should be Friday. It's been absolutely crazy.
I think this has been a busy week for everybody.
Beverly, do you have any final words?
No, just to keep in touch with us, and if there's anything that we can help you with, always here to work with you. So.
Rona, do you have any final words before we hand over to Gillian?
No, only just a wee shout out. I suppose that we are in the process of putting together the summer holiday offer, if you want, for children and families. So I would just say watch out in either the head teacher's bulletin or ELC newsletters for more information.
Perfect. Okay, Gillian, if we can hand over to you to close us out.
You're on mute, Gillian.
Seriously, how many times have I done that today? I'm going to punish myself. There'll be no sweetie after the work tonight. Anyway, no, I just wanted to say thank you so much to Susan and to Beverly for coming along to present tonight. That was incredibly useful information. And I know that lots of people have been in touch with me to say they weren't able to come tonight, but they do want to see the recording. So I'm looking forward to being able to share that. Special thanks to Rona. Thank you for coming along, not only for the presentation tonight, but all that you do. And we need to get the word out about the fantastic engagement work that you're developing, and the support that you give your families is fantastic. So thank you very much. Thank you, team. Look forward to the next family learning webinar, which is coming up soon. Please spread the word, come along, and the more conversation we can have about how we improve family learning, parental involvement, parental engagement, the better. It is definitely an area for future focus for us all. So thanks, everybody.